All right, I've skipped question 4 because we have done enough of those 6-column calculations. All right. Question 5. Jeffrey operates a high-volume fine dining restaurant called the Baroness. His labor productivity ratio of choice is guests served per labor hour. His standards for both servers and buspersons are as follows. Servers are 10 guests per labor hour. Let's type that in. And buspersons are 25 guests per labor hour. All right, so on a busy day, Jeffrey projects the following volume in terms of anticipated guests. His projections are made in 1-hour blocks. Determine the number of labor hours Jeffrey should schedule for each job classification for each time period. All right, so if we want to calculate how many servers we're going to need, let's take the forecasted number of guests served, and we're going to divide that by 10. Now for bus people, I will divide that number by 25. And again, I can copy this formula for the whole entire chart. All right, so we see here, we can't schedule half a person. So what would you do in this situation? Now I think we're going to see 175 guests come in from 12 until 1 o'clock, right? Obviously, we're going to need some staff to open up the restaurant. Okay, so we might want them to come in earlier than 11 o'clock because they'll have prep work, and we want to make sure that we have pre-shift meetings for our employees so that they are properly oriented to the shift. So even though most of our staff members are going to be used from 12 to 1, we probably want to bring them in a little bit earlier so that they are prepared for the shift. In some of these spots where we do see half a person, I might have someone who's like in a flex situation. I might cut down the bus people needed here and add an extra server so that maybe they can do some of the bus person's job or vice versa. I might schedule some people that work from like 12 to 9, so they work during the slower period, they don't open up, and you've got different shifts there, okay? So how often in the night should Jeffrey check this volume forecast in order to ensure that he achieves his labor productivity standards and thus is within budget at the end of the evening? We would check that every hour. And if you're doing a good job as a floor manager, you are checking your server stations to make sure that they're being completely utilized and responding to the level of service that you have there. All right, let's move on to question number 6. Stephen's in trouble. He's never been a particularly strong labor cost control person. He likes to think of himself as more of a people person. His boss, however, believes that Steve must get more serious about controlling labor costs or he will make Steve an unemployed people person. Steve estimates his weekly sales and then submits that figure to his boss, who then assigns Steve a labor budget for the week. Steve's operating results and budget figures for the last month are presented below. All right, let's compute Steve's percent of budget figures for both sales and labor costs and fill in all of the columns here. All right, so let's fill this out. All right, so we know to get our percent of budget, we are going to take our actual divided by our budget. Again, we take our actual divided by our budget. And we can copy this formula here. So we see, let's total this up. Let's see what our budget was. And let's see what our actual was. All right, so we've got some numbers here that are going to tell us something, but let's complete everything first, okay? We'll also sum up these columns here, and for our percent of budget, again, we'll take our actual divided by our budget, and we'll copy these through. Now when it comes to labor costs, what was our target percentage? All right, so if we're looking at what our budget percentage was, we'll take our budget labor cost, we're going to divide that by our budget of sales. So again, here we've got our budget labor cost divided by our budget and sales. And we can copy this formula. And then let's look at our actual. What do we actually run in labor cost? Okay, so we have our we actually spent $900, and our actual sales were $2,250. All right, so what do these numbers mean? Let's take a look at this. All right, so do we feel that Steve has a significant variation from the budget? Okay, so yes. So if we look at our labor cost percentage, he was supposed to run 35%, he ran 40%. He's supposed to run 35, he ran 39. He's supposed to run 30, he ran 36. 35, 39. Okay, so he's about 5% off. Okay, but look at his sales budget, okay? The information that he is getting is not completely accurate. So his boss is actually under budgeting sales, or Steve is under budgeting sales. Somebody's under budgeting sales. So then they're overestimating on their labor cost, okay? So he is hitting, he's hitting 101, he's 103. He is a little bit off. But if he was closer to his target on his sales projections, he would be much closer on his labor costs as well. Okay, so why do we think his boss lowered his labor cost goal percentage in week 3? I think he was looking at him to see if he could do a little bit better job of scheduling, see if he could get a little bit closer, which he did. And so I think if I was Steve's boss and I was Steve, I would sit down and have a conversation about the accuracies of the sales projections and then strategizing how he can better schedule those people so that he can properly manage his staff. All right, let's move on to question number 7. So Jordan is the new Western Regional Manager for the Lotus House, an Asian buffet and restaurant chain. Her territory consists of 12 stores in 4 states. Last week, she received the following data from her stores. Compute Jordan's labor costs by store, by state, and for her region. All right, so again, to get our labor costs, we're going to take our cost of labor, and we're going to divide it by our sales. So again, that's their cost of labor divided by our sales. All right, and this is a formula we can use for our entire chart here. Now we don't have any numbers at the bottom, so that's why we're getting the error, but that's okay, we'll fix that. All right, so let's take a look here. So let's sum up our sales. We can copy and paste these. And for this, let's add all of our stores together. All right, so let's look at our numbers here. California, we are looking at a total of 37%. Oregon, we're looking at 32%. Washington, 32%. Nevada, 32%. And for her region, she's up to 34%. All right, so can Jordan compute the average labor cost percentage for her region by summing the labor cost percentages of the 4 states and dividing by 4? All right, no, she can't, right? Because that would not make it a weighted average. How is the overall labor cost percentage for her region computed? Okay, so again, we take the total sales of her region and we add up the total labor cost for her region, and that's how we're going to get our total sales. Okay, so or it looks like her templates or her goals for like Oregon, Washington, Nevada should be around 30. And it looks like we can be okay with California being a little bit higher, probably because the wages are a little bit higher out there as well.